Welcome to another episode with your chapter crush sweetheart. This is Everblue Presents When You're Enough, a chapter crush sweetheart series. Bronwyn, Chapter 31. I should find my own little forest too. A romance of the little forest. After Michel left, I cleaned up the kitchen and checked the time on the little white cat clock above the sink. 9:28 a.m. That left plenty of time before lunch. Determined to put the craziness of this morning behind me, I took Dorian upstairs to play in her toy loft. After a tea party, a doll fashion show, and eating at the world's tiniest restaurant, I checked the time. 9:56 a.m. Feeling restless after setting Dorian up with a Star Bear movie, I scrunched and diffused my curls while singing along with her. When the movie went off, I checked the time. 10:36 a.m. The movie was 70 minutes long. How is that possible? After throwing a fluffy turtleneck sweater over a pair of jeans and putting on a bit of mascara and chapstick, I brought Dorian downstairs so that she could get changed. Once she was dressed in her favorite yellow sweater and overalls, we bundled up as warmly as we could and crunched our way through the fresh snow on the path to Mama and Papa's house. The sweeping views of the valley with chimneys puffing smoke out of snow-covered rooftops and the near-frozen river glistening below us never fails to take my breath away. As we trudged along, laughing as we tossed snowballs at each other along the way, something eased in me. Maybe it was the stillness of the cold air or the warmth of the sunshine on my face, but in that cozy moment, I wondered what it would look like in spring. Would I get a chance to find out? Until today, I'd only visited Mama and Papa with Michel, but on several occasions, Mama has begged me not to wait on him to come over. Armed with the perfect opportunity to oblige, I knocked on the door as Dorian pushed snow off the railing. I didn't call first because I didn't want them to feel bad if they were going to be out. And if they were busy, they could always send us away. With anyone else, I might have worried about being in imposition, but not so with his parents. Let's just say Michel got his eye-watering bluntness from his mama. I didn't doubt she would tell me if I crossed the line. So I smiled hesitantly when she opened the door, wide-eyed. Good morning, Dorian. Winnie, what's wrong? Good morning. We just thought we'd see if you wanted to visit today. But if it's a bad time, we can— Oh! She exclaimed, a smile lighting her gray eyes as she gave us kisses. Come inside. I'm so glad you both came to visit. As we stepped into the vestibule, the smell of chocolate and toasted nuts hit me, and I immediately smiled. That's what I would call $1 million scent. It smells so good in here. What are you making, Gigi? Dorian asked, tugging at her coat. As I knelt to help her out of, Mama chuckled as she swiped a hand across her flour-dusted blue and white apron. I'm making your papa's favorite, Florentine cookies. Oh, you hear that, Dory? Sounds like we're right on time to help, I said, shedding my own coat. What are Florentines? Hanging the coats on the hooks, we stepped into the warm house where our senses were overwhelmed with the scent of sugar. Come, I'll show you, Mama smiled, leading us to the kitchen. Every surface was covered in either pans of toasted almonds and hazelnuts, bowls of dried fruit or melted chocolate, and paper-lined trays with small cookies in various stages of completion. It looks like a bomb went off in here, Dorian snorted, scanning the kitchen with wide eyes. Dory, I exclaimed, but Mama laughed. I'm afraid she inherited my honesty, she shrugged. No use trying to curb it. All you can do is try to get her to use it kindly. Turning to Dorian, she tilted her head. Would you like to say that another way? I looked on in amazement as Dorian ducked her head abashedly. Gigi, it's messy in here. Can I help you clean? That's my precious girl, Mama smiled, wrapping her arms around Dorian. Yes, please. Do you want to close both the containers for me? After Dorian washed her hands, she set about her task. What can I do to help? I asked. Mama pointed to a batch of lacy brown clusters that were already dipped in chocolate. Some have almonds and some have hazelnuts, but there are also cranberries, a bit of orange and caramel. After it bakes, I dip it in chocolate. Here, taste one and tell me what you think. Lifting one of the delicate treats, I took a careful bite, then groaned as the nutty sweetness hit my tongue. So good. Covering my mouth, my eyes widened as I realized I was loud, but Mama giggled, leaning in to whisper conspiratorially. Don't worry. It doesn't bother me like it does my son. Maybe if he could keep his eyes off of you, it wouldn't bother him so much either. I flushed, but I didn't know how to respond to that. Clearly, she was seeing what Michel wanted her to see. I think that's just one of the ways I annoy him. We each have our thing. I'm learning to curb it. Mama laughed as she scooped cookies onto a parchment-lined platter. Why curb it when you can enjoy it? A bubble of surprised laughter erupted from me as I looked at her in shock. He's my own son, she giggled. But I'll tell you, annoyance is the last thing on his mind when he looks at you. It's like he's jealous of the food that goes into your mouth. I choked on my cookie as she cracked herself up, and I couldn't help joining in. It was pretty funny when I thought about it, and I couldn't wait to tell him that the next time it comes up. Upon washing my hands, I was set to work, dipping the cookies as Dorian tired herself out sweeping the floor. And after having a delicious bowl of chicken stew, Dorian fell asleep on one of the dark blue sofas in the great room. When Mama asked why I speak French so well, I told her about Julia while we finished up the cookies. She smiled upon learning Julia was from Chambéry, saying it wasn't far from Annecy, and it explained why I spoke with their regional accent. With the last batch of Florentines out of the oven, Mama sat at a little table just inside the kitchen and sipped at her cup. Come have your tea, darling. I will, I smiled. Only have 5 cookies left. After getting them dipped and setting them to cool on the rack, I made my way to the table as Mama poured a fresh cup of tea. Ani? Yes, thank you, I said, glancing around her bright, pale blue and yellow kitchen. You have such a cozy home. Thank you for having us. She waved her hand. You don't have to thank me. I'm happy you came. I didn't think you would. I nodded, a bit disappointed that I had already messed up. Sorry, I know I'm not a very social person. I've been told that a lot growing up. Her eyes widened. I don't know who told you this, but I disagree. You're wonderful. You're in the very small minority of people who seem to think so. I chuckled. But it's okay. I've learned to accept it. Sitting her cup of tea down, she took my hand in hers and looked at me earnestly, her sharp eyes reminiscent of Michel's. Darling, have you ever heard of the illustration likening people to vowels? I shook my head, not knowing what direction she was going in. Giving my hand a pat, she sat back. There are plenty of vowels that take up space. Think about their lowercase shapes. An E and a U are more open, while an A and O are closed off. However, an I will always stand up alone, seeming to hold up the world. It reaches for no other letters and takes up the least amount of space. Yet, not one vowel is less important than the other, no matter how big or small it seems. All vowels are necessary for speech to move people, even nations, forward. You, Bronwyn, are uniquely you. We don't wish you to be anyone else. We love you as you are, and we're glad you're now part of our family. Wow. I cleared my throat, blinking back tears, unexpectedly touched. I don't know what to say. Thank you. She smiled as she considered me a moment, then nodded. Besides, I wasn't speaking of your personality earlier. I thought you wouldn't come because you and Michel fought. The tea I was sipping stilled in my mouth as I glanced up. She's tall, not as tall as Michel, but a few inches taller than me, and I felt every one of them as she gazed at me. As she folded long fingers together in front of her mouth, I swallowed the tea and sat my cup down, briefly at a loss for words. We didn't fight. We never fight. I managed to get out. Mama smirked. You had a discussion then? And there's no use denying it. I saw his face this morning. He looked like a lost puppy. My brow wrinkled as I sighed. We did. We're always in discussions. It's Michel's favorite thing to do. She hummed, nodding emphatically. I spent a lot of time hiding from him when he was a child. I laughed at the abrupt admission. I completely get why you would want to. No, I did, Mama exclaimed with a scowl. Everything was why, and I don't understand. What are you saying? I laughed so hard tears streamed from my eyes. So he's always been this way. Always, darling, she chuckled. But it comes from his need to understand, to make things make sense. It's what made him a good policeman. It's what makes him a good lawyer and father. It's what will make him an excellent husband in time. Sighing, I pursed my lips as I considered her words. What if we don't have time? I whispered, the words slipping out before I realized I'd spoken. She tilted her head. It's an odd thing for a newlywed to say. I blushed, ducking my head while mentally kicking myself. Some things burn brightly and fizzle out no matter how much you want it to last forever. When she remained silent, I snuck a glance to discover her looking at me knowingly. be patient with him, darling. He's someone who's willing to do the work and put in the time for someone he loves. Just don't give up on him. But that's just it, isn't it? I'm confident we love each other as friends, but the kind of love she means? I frowned, trying to figure out what I was thinking. I'm not going to run away from him, but what if he eventually runs away from me? What if we end up being too different, or I offend him somehow? She looked at me like another head just emerged from my neck. When she waved me closer, I leaned forward, wondering what she was going to say. She quickly reached over and gently flicked my forehead. Ah! I exclaimed, clapping a hand to my head. It didn't hurt, but it was more the shock of it. Mama! Why? Cackling like crazy, she leaned over, whispering, Fine, let me tell you a secret. I leaned closer, and she flicked me again. Mama! Please! I cried, holding my forehead, completely bewildered. Why did you come closer? She giggled. You asked me to, I grumbled, still rubbing my forehead. All right, her eyes sparkled. But why the second time, after I already flicked you? I don't know, I frowned. Because you asked. Because you trusted me, she firmly stated. I'm not sure how long that's going to last. I grumbled, to which she laughed hysterically. I begrudgingly smiled. She's cute, even if she and her son are nuts. Oh, I'm sorry, my darling, but I had a point, she explained, reaching out to clasp both of my hands. Even after I offended you, you wanted to believe I had good intentions, that I had a reason. You trusted that I would make up for what I did, but what do you know of me? Skeptically looking at her with my brow arched, I shook my head. I'm wondering the same thing myself, Mama. She let out a short bark of laughter before lowering her voice. My point is this. You didn't leave. You tried to figure out what was going on. Your desire to figure it out outweighed your anger and even your pride. And that's simply because of your desire to understand me because I'm your husband's mother. So why would your husband give up trying to understand you when you're the closest person to him? You're no stranger. He gave you his name. He shared his whole world with you. In what way could you possibly offend him that he won't seek to understand you? And in what world does Michu's curiosity find an end? I stared back at her as she smiled, and I knew she was right. If Michel loved me, there's nothing that would make him leave. He'd cling until the end, even when the situation is beyond hope. He only changed jobs because he wanted to protect his family. He didn't leave Yvette until he was long past the shadow of a doubt that their marriage couldn't be saved, and even then he wanted to protect Dorian. He'll do anything for those he loves. Yet, he doesn't love me that way. We're friends, even if my heart is stuck in a perpetual state of yearning. But is that what I want? For him to love me that completely? She chuckled. You, my dear, worry about things that have not happened before they happen. If you spend so much time preparing for the worst, you will miss the moments that can spare you from what you feel the most. Shaking my head, I squinted at her. I know you just said something groundbreaking, but it went right over my head. She merely winked. Think about it, and when Michel gets home, tell him his mama flicked you in the forehead and make him kiss it better. I blinked until she started laughing wickedly. Mama! We spent another hour laughing and talking over pictures of Michel as an adorable boy, a cute teenager, and then a gorgeous man. I mean, just eye-wateringly beautiful. My heart ached for the youthful man who didn't know the pain and bitterness ahead of him. Yvette may have taken more from him than she left behind, but his real triumph is that something of himself is still there, a foundation he could rebuild on. During this trip, I've seen flashes of that version of him, the effusive joy and playfulness that occasionally bubbled to the surface in New York seems to spill out of him here. I hope he's able to hang on to that. And while I'm in his life, I'll do everything I can to make sure he has room for it to grow. Dorian got a real kick out of seeing her papa at her age, and I now own a small collection of pictures gifted to me before we got up to leave. When I thanked Mama for everything, she handed me a large thermos and a parcel of cookies that she told me not to share with Adrien because he'd have to get his own. Laughing, we said our goodbyes before Dorian and I tromped back across the snowy path to our house. It was nearly 4, and the sun would soon be setting. Dorian wanted to have a picnic, but after convincing her it was too cold and I had a better idea, we giggled as we threw ourselves into setting everything up in the living room. Nothing was resolved. Everything was still up in the air with Michel, with my family, with work, but in that moment, it was okay because I was right where I wanted to be. Yet, as Dorian and I changed clothes, the same question repeatedly pinged through my mind. How would I convince my heart that was enough? Like what you're hearing? Tune in Sundays, 9 a.m. Eastern, or visit us at everblueauthor.substack.com for even more stories.